What if the reason you feel lost is because you are no longer meant to be found in the places you used to belong? There comes a moment in life when everything you once chased suddenly feels meaningless. The goals that once excited you now feel heavy. The noise of the world becomes unbearable, and in that silence, you start questioning yourself, why have I lost my motivation? But what if this isn't loss? What if this is transformation? What if the fire you once had didn't die? It simply refused to burn for things that no longer align with your soul. Spiritual awakening is not a beautiful sunrise. It is often a painful unraveling. It strips you of illusions, detaches you from false desires, and leaves you standing in the unfamiliar territory of truth. And in that space, motivation doesn't disappear, it evolves. You didn't lose motivation, you lost illusion. There was a time when your heart raced at the thought of achieving more, becoming more, proving more, and you believed that this constant chase was your purpose. You believed that the louder the applause, the more meaningful your life would be. But what you didn't realize was that your motivation was quietly built on fragile foundations, on validation, on comparison, on the need to be seen and accepted. And the moment your soul awakened, it began to question everything you once accepted as truth. It began to peel back the layers of illusions that you had mistaken for dreams. And suddenly, the things that once gave you energy started to feel empty. Not because you became weak, but because you became aware. You started seeing through the artificial definitions of success that the world had handed to you, the same definitions you once chased without question. And now those goals feel like borrowed desires, like clothes that never truly belong to you. And this shift is terrifying because it leaves you standing in a place where nothing feels certain anymore, where the old motivations no longer work and the new ones have not yet revealed themselves. And in this confusion, you mistake clarity for loss. You mistake awakening for emptiness, when in reality, your soul has simply refused to keep chasing illusions that no longer align with your truth. There is a deep discomfort in realizing that what once drove you was never truly yours, that your ambitions were shaped by external voices louder than your own inner calling. And now that those voices have faded, you are left in silence. A silence that feels heavy because you are not used to hearing your own truth so clearly. And this silence can feel like a loss of motivation when in fact it is the absence of noise that once distracted you. It is the absence of illusions that once gave you temporary direction, and now you are being asked to rebuild your desires from a place of authenticity rather than expectation. And this is where your real journey begins, not in chasing what once excited you, but in rediscovering what truly resonates with your soul, in learning to sit with the discomfort of not knowing, in understanding that motivation rooted in illusion will always fade. But motivation rooted in truth takes time to grow. It requires patience, honesty, and the courage to let go of everything that once defined you. And as painful as it feels, this loss is not your downfall. It is your awakening into a life that is no longer driven by illusion, but guided by something far deeper and far more real. Your soul is rejecting what no longer serves you. There is a quiet rebellion happening within you, one that you cannot control no matter how hard you try to go back to your old ways. You sit in front of the same goals, the same routines, the same expectations, and yet something inside you refuses to cooperate. It resists, it hesitates, it pulls you away, and you begin to question your discipline, your strength, your ambition. But what you fail to see is that this resistance is not weakness, it is wisdom. It is your soul stepping in and saying no to everything that no longer nourishes your growth. You try to force yourself to care again, to feel that same fire, to recreate the version of you that once thrived in that environment. But every attempt feels exhausting, unnatural, and deeply misaligned, as if you are trying to breathe in a space that no longer has air for you. And this is where frustration begins to grow, because your mind wants familiarity. It wants the comfort of the known, but your soul has already moved beyond it. Your soul has already seen a truth that your mind is still struggling to accept. What makes this phase even more difficult is that from the outside, nothing has changed. Your life may look the same. Your responsibilities may still exist. Your surroundings may still demand the same version of you. But internally, everything has shifted. Your perception, your values, your priorities. And now there is a disconnect between who you are becoming and what your environment still expects from you. And this disconnect between who you are becoming and what your environment still expects from you. And this disconnect creates a deep sense of exhaustion because you are constantly being pulled between honoring your truth and meeting external expectations. And so your lack of motivation is not a flaw, it is a signal. It is your inner self refusing to invest energy into things that no longer align with your growth. It is a form of protection, a way of guiding you away from paths that would only drain you further. And even though it feels uncomfortable, even though it feels like you are losing control, what is actually happening is that you are being redirected gently but firmly towards a life that resonates with who you are becoming, not who you used to be. You are in the void between who you were and who you're becoming. There is a space in transformation that no one prepares you for, a space where you no longer recognize yourself, yet you haven't fully discovered who you are becoming. And this space feels like emptiness, like floating without direction, like standing in the middle of a bridge that connects your past to your future, but unable to see what lies ahead. And this is where motivation seems to disappear. Because motivation often relies on clarity, on certainty, on knowing where you are going. And in this void, there is none of that. You may feel disconnected from everything that once defined you, your passions, your ambitions, even your identity. And this disconnection can feel frightening because it creates the illusion that you have lost yourself completely. But what is actually happening is that you are shedding layers that were never truly you. You are releasing identities that were built on survival rather than authenticity. And in doing so, you are creating space for something new to emerge, even if you cannot see it yet. This void is not a punishment. It is a process. It is a necessary pause where your soul recalibrates, where your mind unlearns, where your heart heals from everything it once endured. And while it may feel like stagnation, it is actually deep transformation happening beneath the surface. It is the quiet rebuilding of your inner world, the slow formation of a new identity that is not rushed, not forced, but naturally aligned with your truth. And even though this phase feels uncomfortable, even though it tests your patience and your faith in yourself, it holds a powerful purpose. Because it teaches you to exist without constant movement, without external validation, without the need to always be progressing in visible ways. It teaches you to trust the unseen, to embrace the uncertainty, to understand that not all growth is loud and visible. Some of the most profound transformations happen in silence, in stillness, in the moments where you feel like nothing is happening, but everything is quietly changing within you. You are being called to purpose, not pressure. For most of your life, you were taught to move under pressure, to meet deadlines, to chase expectations, to measure your worth by how much you could achieve in the shortest amount of time. And this constant pressure created a version of motivation that was driven by fear, fear of falling behind, fear of not being enough, fear of not meeting the standards set by others. And while it kept you moving, it never truly fulfilled you. It only kept you busy. But after awakening, something shifts. That pressure no longer controls you the way it once did. Those same fears lose their grip, and suddenly you find yourself unable to push forward in the same way. Not because you lack discipline, but because your soul is no longer willing to be driven by fear. It is now seeking something deeper, something more meaningful, something that resonates beyond external validation. And this is where purpose begins to replace pressure. The challenge, however, is that purpose does not reveal itself instantly. It does not come with clear instructions or immediate clarity. It requires exploration, patience, and a willingness to sit with uncertainty. And in a world that glorifies constant action, this stillness can feel like failure. It can feel like you are falling behind. But in reality, you are simply moving at a pace that allows alignment rather than force. And this shift from pressure to purpose is not easy. It requires you to let go of everything that once defined your sense of productivity, to release the need for constant validation, to trust that your journey does not have to look like anyone else's. And as uncomfortable as it may feel, this is where true fulfillment begins, not in doing more, but in doing what truly matters, not in chasing faster, but in aligning deeper with what your soul is calling you towards in the end. And so, if you find yourself standing in this unfamiliar silence, where the noise of ambition has faded and the urgency to prove yourself no longer exists, do not mistake it for emptiness, because this is the space where your soul finally has the room to speak. This is where you are no longer distracted by illusions or driven by fear, but gently guided by something deeper, something more honest. And even though it feels uncomfortable, even though it makes you question your direction, this phase is not here to break you. It is here to rebuild you in a way that is real, in a way that is lasting, in a way that no longer depends on the world's approval, but on your own inner alignment. You are not lost. You are simply no longer willing to settle for a life that does not reflect who you truly are becoming. And that realization changes everything. Because now your journey is not about chasing what once excited you. It is about discovering what truly fulfills you. It is about allowing your motivation to rise from purpose instead of pressure, from truth instead of illusion. And even if the path ahead feels uncertain, even if the fire within you feels different than before, trust that this new fire is not weaker, it is wiser. It burns with intention, it moves with meaning, and it will lead you exactly where you are meant to be.